ever been walking through the Navy Exchange and wonder why all the Naval Pride and Heritage gear is horrifically ugly and you wouldn't actually wear it? Have you ever wanted some really cool gear and you just don't know where to go? Well, I got you, fam. Go to dgutsapparel.com immediately. Get yourself some Naval Pride and Heritage gear you'll actually wear in public. We're working on new designs all the time, open to ideas. We're trying to create a brand that lets you display that pride, but doesn't make you cringe. Also, if you're willing to and you're able to, please go to patreon.com/dgutspodcast, pick one of the 5 tiers and become a patron today. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Don't Give Up the Ship podcast, episode 123. And we're back with another Ask the Chief. It's been a while since I've caught up with Chief Bob on an episode. Anyway, I figured like it'd be a good time to do it. And also I just was having trouble. Like I've been talking to a ton of people to like schedule podcasts, and everything just kept not working and falling through. And then I didn't have anything scheduled. And so I've been working on some solo stuff as well. But and I mean, Friday is when I released the open message to commanders. So that one was not planned at all, obviously. And so, first of all, like I want to apologize for there not being a video. I recorded video when I recorded that podcast, and there was a glitch with my camera. I don't know what happened. I still can't figure it out. I've tried to repair the video and all kinds of other stuff. So, if there's any video editing gurus out there, I know Damo is the homie over at PTSF podcast, but like, it's one of those weird things where I don't even think it can be fixed, but you know, I might be wrong. But anyway, so I want to apologize for that. And then, I'll be putting some stuff out to kind of calmly clarify some things. I'm not trying to like defend anything. I stand behind every single word I said and how I said it. But you know, like just to provide a little more context and dive a little bit deeper into it. But anyway, so there's that piece of it. But then, yeah, I kind of reached out to Chief Bob and I was just like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, I need to get something done. And we haven't done an episode in a while. So, that's what this is, us catching up. We talk about a lot of things. Like always, I mean, it's an Ask the Chief episode. So if you've been around a while, you know what I'm talking about. If not, stay tuned. It's always fun. I love talking to Bob. Unfortunately not Senior Chief Bob. I just found out like a few hours ago that he didn't get picked up this year, but he will. I have no doubt. And I had some awesome friends, like shout out to Sophia, made Senior Chief. It's cool to see every year. And so if any of the listeners made it, congratulations. And I hope you enjoy this one. Check it out. Fire hat, dude. I like that.
Good old Facebook ads, man. I'm a slave to capitalism.
Ditto. It gets me sometimes too, especially with jujitsu stuff. I have to keep I've probably gone to like 10 different sites to like buy shorts, and like I add a bunch of stuff to my cart and I'm like, I don't need it. And then I just like in it.
I keep getting ads for them, and then I've seen it for probably months, and so
I recognize that. I feel like I probably have seen it too. But yeah, it's a cool hat. I feel like I know vaguely what company it is or something. But anyway, so what's new? What's new in the Chief Bob universe?
You're just waiting for these results.
Yeah, dude, I had another moment where I'm so unplugged. Like I had no idea. Like I didn't cause it helps that the COVID stuff, like the dates were always different for a few years, but are we back to like a normal pipeline now? Like a normal timeline
ish. Well, so I don't really know cause I didn't pay attention to it pre-COVID because I wasn't eligible then. Right. So I just didn't, I wasn't stressed about the dates at all. But so the last 2 years are hard to tell.
It seems right. It seems about right.
I looked at, I did. Well, what's weird though, is so I was trying to do like historical trend analysis. Right. And so you can look up through My Navy HR, the previous quotas for the last 3 years. And in the corner, it has like the admiral or whoever signs it, dates it. Yeah. And then the next thing I looked at is the nav admin with the results. And it was 2 months later, and I was like, that sounds crazy long. That sounds crazy long though. From the time
board,
that for the quotas come out at the end of the board.
So that Millington releases the quotas, but then the like our recommended selections have to go through that chop chain all the way up to like CNP, and when CNP signs it out, then it's like ready. So it usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, so
that seems crazy. I thought it was supposed to be. So like when you set the chief board though, didn't they tell you it would be 3 to 5?
Well, it was supposed.
I could have swore you said 3 to 5.
I don't think so. I might have. I don't know. It's been a while. I don't remember what they said, but in my head right now, 6 to 8 weeks sounds right. But I'd have to, dude. You know, like I'm fucking big stuff all the time, so like I don't know.
But so anyways, the quotas came out on the 21st.
It sounds about right timeline wise.
And so
I obsessed over Senior Chief for a while because I was trying to be a cob and I was up a million times. So I was like, I'm pretty confident like May, June time frame was results for Senior Chief and Master Chief. Traditionally. So it sounds like we might be back in a tradition. Do you have any data?
Somebody else said that like end of May.
Yeah.
No. Well, so I feel like somebody said it's usually like the last week of May, which, and again, I don't know. And it's the last 2 years aren't a good indicator really.
Right. Right.
But so they haven't said anything yet, about when they expect him to be. So obviously not this week. Because they'll usually tell you like at the beginning of the week.
Squirrels,
right?
Because they're being super secret squirrels about it. No big deal. little product placement for you. DGUTSapparel.com. Go get you a secret squirrel shirt soon. By the time this comes out, maybe. But I got the Skiff Mates one. I should have brought it in here too. It's pretty dope. It's like I don't think I showed it to you. It's like a Star Wars. Here, I'll do it real quick. It's like a Star Wars font with Matrix.
Yeah, you posted it in the.
Did I? I posted it on social media. Well, I'm talking about it now, so that's what it's the Star Wars font, but it has like the Matrix green lettering behind it.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty dope. My CT homies, they could see. I just did the thing with the camera. I got to move it. Hit my.
Just turn off the autofocus.
No, I hit my desk.
No, it's bumping
so it earthquaked. Yeah, I need to do basically with that microphone that you used that one day that was like clipped onto the desk. I need to permanently attach this thing to the desk so that it. I'd have to like hit the pole for it to shake.
Right.
Like that, but
So anyways, they haven't said anything. So next week, hopefully, but that's just a total guess. And then of course, like my favorite is looking through, I think the other day in one of the chief groups, somebody posted something about like, hey, when are the 8 and 9 results coming out? And there's like 1,000
cousin's aunt that used to bang the McPon said.
There's like a bunch of random rumors, right? Which and most of it's just sarcastic, stupid answers, which are just funny to laugh through.
Yeah.
But somebody was saying that they might be taking longer because, and I didn't even think about it because it doesn't apply to any submarine rates, but that whole the rating marketplace something or other, like basically if I was in a different rate, right, I would apply. And then if I got accepted to be, there's a set of results that could come out and say, hey, you're just a senior chief right now. And then there's other rates where it'll say like, hey, you're eligible to apply for senior chief rates now or positions. And then you have to get accepted for that billet. Yeah. And so I'm sure like sorting through all those details.
It's probably and I don't know, but trying to sort through all the quotas, like what quotas do we need for the detailing marketplace and what quotas do we need, and it's like they come out with the good idea for this marketplace thing with zero infrastructure to support it, like they do everything else. I'm assuming I'm just like being jaded right now. I don't know anything about it really. Like Joe tried to explain it to me and I'm like, I guess it sounds like a good idea, but I'm just assuming it's being executed horrifically because trend analysis.
It's from what I understood, like, I don't think it's a terrible idea. It's just hard because it's hard for me to wrap my head around it because there's no submarine rates that it applies to. Yeah. And because of that, I kind of just wrote it off of like, that's a surface thing or that's the other communities. And so it doesn't apply to me. So I didn't get too invested, and it's not like just a selfish, like it doesn't apply to me. Like it doesn't apply to any submarine rates. So I didn't get too invested with it.
Why are the submariners not playing?
I think our advancement and structure and billeting and all that stuff is just so structured and limited already that there's not like we don't have a bunch of like senior chief billets on a boat that you could go fill and be like, hey, I know all you chiefs, like you don't necessarily get auto advanced to senior chief, but if you go take this EDMC or Cobb billet, you know, like what else is a senior chief specific or be better
I feel
billet,
like,
you know?
Yeah, I feel like you could do it. The personnel costs would go up. Like I always thought that even though we're small, like it would make a lot more sense for there to be like within supply, like you have, or like nav ops, right? They have the NODIA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like whoever's
but they got rid of those.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think there's value to having that, like having department chiefs so that the department chiefs would be the E8 billets, and then the 9 billets would be Cobb and EDMC. Like, and it would eliminate a lot of like, look, there are certain things that happen in my experience on submarines in like the structure of how the chief's mess works that it can get weird. Like when you have an EDMC that's a master chief and a Cobb that's a senior chief, like it's a stupid problem to have that could be really easily fixed. And you could do it a bunch of ways. Like they've discussed like frocking those guys when they show up, like they do an eng to or whatever. But it's like, or you could just do what the rest of the Navy's doing. And like when they go into that role, they're advanced, because like, unless they get fired for cause, I think even like a below average Cobb, it's like you volunteered to go to that role and you didn't get fired, you get a 2nd star. Like, and then maybe they don't become CMCs based on that performance, but like there's something to be said for that, just the act, like just the being willing to raise your hand. And yes, I did it with the understanding I was going to have a 2nd star, but you have to, like, even though you're signing up for it to get the 2nd star, you still got to do, it's like nukes that re-enlist right out of power school or whatever. It's like, you got to do that 6 years now. You're like, yeah, you got that fat bonus.
That's just another, like, that's another thing though, their argument against why they like the Cobb propay is only $150 a month, right? To go be a Cobb or a CMC, you get 150.
Should be a lot.
It should be, but they want you to want to do it, not for the money. They want you to do it for the job. Like, which I get it. I get it. Be
like a selfless saint too, but it's never going to happen. And it's like, I don't think the money would be a huge incentive. I think it would be like ointment on the wound, like of the experience. Well, like it would.
But then I would also say
a nice like benefit.
The counter argument to that though would be how many. I know of at least one. I'm sure there's a handful, right? But how many, say for submarines, right? How many Cobbs have shown up as senior chief and not made 9 before they left?
Oh, a whole bunch, like a whole bunch. Like, and it's
not the majority though, by any stretch.
Not the majority, but there's a grip of them, especially like the Nav ETs and guys that are in rates that are not making many, if any, master chiefs. Like, if there were a more proportional amount of cooks that wanted to be Cobbs, there'd be a bunch of cooks not making 9, like ever. And it's
that gets me back to my old argument though, that Cobbs should not be their source rate.
I 100% agree.
It should be its own rate.
It should be a command.
I feel like they
chief.
should be called command senior chief.
Yeah, 100%. Like once you because think about like the situation
who's going back
right now, where you have you haven't been in rate for a decade, and then also like it's more of just like a common practice than a policy. But I think I'd have to talk to a Cobb detailer or something, or look at the what's it called, the sub-PERS man or something, and see if it says anything. But like a post-tour Cobb that doesn't get picked up for CMC doesn't go back to their source rating most of the time. It happens. Like I had a IDC that was the Cobb on one of the boats here. I don't remember. And he didn't get picked up for CMC, and kind of like I don't know if he finished his Cobb tour or what. He had medical issues that like had him like retiring early basically. But I think he finished his Cobb tour, but he picked up 9, like on his way in. He picked up 9 with me the same year. And it was like they put him in the IDC role at that flag command because they had to put him somewhere. And I think because of the medical stuff, he had to stay local. Banana. I don't really know the details.
Yeah.
He explained some of it to me, but whatever. But yeah, it's like if you've been out of your source rate for like 3 or 4 years and then you don't pick up 9 and they're like, oh, okay, well, now you're just going to go be a senior chief at the A school. It's like, does that make sense? Like, do you,
well, not
like,
even that, but like, so for shore duties, I kind of get the flexibility, right? Because, at that point, the jobs that they're filling are pretty rate agnostic. And so it's kind of irrelevant what you're doing there, right? You're just being in charge of a bunch of people one way or another, right?
I'm not saying
but that's what's weird to me is how many people have gone like, who's done a cob tour? Once you go do a cob tour, though, you're not going back to sea as anything other than a cob.
I guess what I'm saying, though, is like you being in the position you're in right now, like you're going back to a boat as a whatever like
EW,
you're a radio chief,
guy.
like as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But like you're going back to a submarine to not only like go back and try to figure out how to do your old job, but it's not even your old job anymore because of the rating merger. Now you're in IT. So it's like, you're like going back like as somebody who almost cross-rated, sort of like not that extreme, but like
pretty close.
And so like, and I have no doubt that you're going to succeed there, but there's going to be like a learning curve and growing pains. And
for sure.
The thing that I'm saying is like your talents could have been better used elsewhere if we just were willing to accept that sometimes unique career paths happen. And a guy like you should be on a Jesus Felix career path instead of like a traditional submariner career path, just because you spent so much time. Yeah, that's a buddy of ours for context for everybody that doesn't know. He's on the So You Want to Go to Norfolk episode, but he had a non-traditional career path and now he's a command master chief. So it's like, I think your value would be better used in that arena, not in like, okay, we're going to like retrain you. You're going to learn the code. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, like we're going to retrain you almost to do it's, and that's not
the
like
argument that I've heard
thing, but
no, and I've had that same argument, but the argument against that I can understand is if I were capable of going to do that, right? Like, let's say I was going to go be a command senior chief somewhere, obviously out of rating because there's no command senior chief billets in the subfleet. Then if I could go learn that, then why couldn't I also learn and do the work on a submarine?
That's
you know what I mean? And help out there.
Horrific argument for so many reasons. And the most obvious one is you've spent your entire career learning how to be a leader and be in that position, right? Like you have not spent your whole career in rate, right?
Right.
So that argument is stupid.
But
like you're infinitely more qualified to be a command senior chief than you are to be whatever billet you're filling on a submarine.
Well, I mean, I need to star first, but
true.
I don't know. I'm only looking forward to. I didn't really have. I think I like start reading too much into the background on dumb things, and I like overanalyze stuff, right? So it's not. I don't. Coming into this year, coming the last couple of years, like as of a few years ago, I did not have any hopes of making it this year. My initial first hope was next year would be my first real chance of when I thought that I would make it, right? But even now, I don't think that's true because by the time I actually get to the boat, by the time I meet up with the boat, I don't even know if I'm going to get a chance to get underway before evals are due. You know what I mean? So like, how much am I really going to get a chance to get done? So at best,
get a
in my head,
and here you go, guy. You know, like
which that nobody's looking at that going, this dude sounds like an all-star. I get that there's a historical. You're looking through all of it, right?
Against you either, yeah.
No, but it's not helping
longer, though. Yeah, it takes longer for you to light the world on fire and do the thing, and
right. So in my head, I would have to wait till next year's eval, which would be the following year. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at like 2 years down the line at this point, at least. But there's a chance based off of the stuff that I have from the last command that maybe it works out this time. And if it does, that'd be awesome. Because if it doesn't, my thought is it's going to be on the way out the door off of the boat, which kind of sucks.
I mean,
just because again, that
it'll
slows
work
me down.
out. It'll suck. I don't think it'll slow you down. I think
it wouldn't slow me down.
Well, no. So here's what I'm saying is like, one, you can get to board and check ride as a chief with a cob card in your hand. It happens. And there's precedent for qualifying chief's cob. even though you shouldn't, because Senior Chief's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
They've done it in this area that you're in now. They've done it.
I know.
So
I don't think that same mentality would fly though from talking to other people.
I'm not saying it would either. However, your stepdad's going to be the CMC that makes that decision, aren't you, Aaron?
I don't think he would.
So I'm just saying.
I don't think he would.
I'm just saying. I bet you I'll give him a whole bunch of shit about it.
No, because
I'll waterboard him into submission, metaphorically, obviously.
I think at least from talking to him, right? Like his point of view is like, yeah, I think you could, but I don't think that he would, just because of what I'm saying though is strife that would cause. And I would not be upset by that.
If you put it on your way out the door and then just check ride and board, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
like, and like you go, I don't know, like do something. Maybe you go to Group 9, hang out with Aaron for a week, and then you go be a cop. I don't like.
But what I mean is that this could also, like, let's say I put it on now, and then by next eval cycle, I'm completely done and qualified, right? Like a year and change into
you could just
my
bounce,
tour.
Hopefully,
that if something came up and they needed somebody though, then I'm at least on the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it gives me that
chance. You're right.
It's not likely that I would go do that. It's not likely that I would split tour like that and go straight to it.
I don't think they would.
It gives me the opportunity.
You'd be the last choice until you're like qualified and proficient, all the things. Like I feel like
for sure.
Like Aaron wouldn't want you to be the first choice because it's like, well, he needs to get re-proficient submarines first.
Right.
You know? So, but it could happen, especially if they put you on like a shipyard boat, which would suck in its own way. But
yeah, but I just mean that it gives me more options, obviously.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I don't know. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. But I'm just hoping that I don't. So I was laughing.
Full.
So
I'll be the optimist in the room.
So I got here's the reason that because superstitions are everything in the Navy, right? Or we call them traditions, but but
or hazing.
So when Tony made Senior Chief that year, he'd been up for it for a while also. When he made it, he immediately gave me and the other dude in the division all of his chief stuff. He like split everything that he had in half, gave it to both of us. And he's like, you guys are going to make it this year. And we're both like, cool. Thanks for ruining it for it. Like jinxing us type deal.
And then none of you did.
No. Both of us did that year.
Oh, made Chief. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I thought you were
and
so, about Chief.
no. So both of us made both of us made Chief.
Yeah.
And then when, so this year he put on 9, right, and picked up CMC. And
I love
a week
that
ago,
he's running around the Navy wearing an anchor with 2 stars above it, because I knew him as a first class, and I
love it.
I would have bet my left kidney that he would not be that guy, but I'm super happy that he is though. Like,
yeah,
it's amazing.
But so about a week ago in the mail, I got a box that's got like every Senior Chief uniform item, cufflinks, all the jazz, right?
Oh yeah,
which is awesome. But I was like,
I could give you 2 probably.
But when he gave it to me, I was like, cool. Now he jinxed it.
Awesome.
So, but so like A, he jinxed it, but then
you were
B,
wrong
the last time he did
though.
this,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, there's a trend analysis, baby. Let's go. Bob's gonna be Senior Chief Bob. No more Chief Bob.
Yeah, we'll see.
That'd be sick.
Again, it's one of those like I'm not. It's just one of those in my head. If I don't this time, I'm not surprised or whatever else. I'm not like upset about it. The only bummer part to me is thinking like, damn, it's probably going to be 2 to 3 more years then, like realistically.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
But unless the numbers go well, because there's also going to be another rating split probably by Christmas. And so I'm going to be in my 3rd rate before the end of the year, or 5th or whatever it is. They're taking the 2 and making it 3. So they're putting LAN, EW, and radio as 3 different versions.
So you're just going to go back to being a radio chief?
I don't know.
Probably.
They have not asked, nor have I given any input as to what I would like to be. Last I heard, they basically said, "Hey, don't contact us. We'll contact you. Like, we'll figure it out by looking at your record." But
so you're going to be a radio chief.
Based on what though? What I did as a second class? Being
a radioman? Like but it's the only experience that you have, isn't it? Or is your more relevant recent experience land stuff?
Well, I just finished up the senior IT school. I finished the final tomorrow for that. You know what I mean? So like,
I mean, that's fair, I guess.
And I spent all of my time on shore duty messing with EW stuff when I was in rate because that was my rate. So I have no idea.
Whatever.
I have no idea.
It's not going to matter.
But on the plus side, I'm not really intimidated by any of the three. If I go whatever it ends up being, like it is what it is.
Yeah.
So there's that. But then, so with that though, is when I started thinking about that, we were talking about it earlier or the other day when I was talking about doing something about senior chiefs and master chiefs because of the merge or because of the results.
I'm going to do it. Hey.
Right.
Next episode.
But there's two articles though that like I thought were interesting. Both of them were in proceedings, of course. And one of them from Paul Kingsbury. I read that one a long time ago and that's kind of, and to be honest, I haven't read it recently. So I could be way off on what his actual point is. So if he's listening, I'm sorry if I completely butcher what your point is. To be fair, I have not read it in a while, but the title of it, right, is Make Better Use of the Super Chiefs. And I always, that's a thing that always bugged me was, I used to constantly get into arguments with my buddy, like not real arguments, right? But so he went LDO and he was constantly trying to convince me and anybody else that he's ever met to go put in a package and do all that, right? And that's cool. And I'm not against anybody doing it. Like, more power to you. Even if you're only doing it for the money, like, go get paid, take care of your life. I don't care about that. But what I don't get is when they're trying to sell me with like this serious argument of like, there is a need for me to be an expert at this. And it's like, well, how much of an expert are you though? Because you're not doing that job anymore. Number one, like you have removed yourself from all button pushing and doing any of that. Right. So you're no longer the SME, or your SME experience almost stopped immediately.
They're like graybeards, sort of like,
right. But then what I don't understand is like his point was, he's like, well, I'm the voice for that rate and that community in the wardroom to the CO. And my argument would always be, well, if your CO is not listening to your senior chiefs and master chiefs in that rate, then there's a bigger problem. Yeah. I don't think you need to add more to the wardroom. I think you need to deal with some other relationship issues that you've got. So like, I don't buy that as you need that expert voice in the wardroom. Cause
I've always been hung up on the same thing because like, and maybe it's applicable when you scale everything up to an aircraft carrier, because there's so many layers of like leadership, like separation between all the different.
And maybe
layers.
That's my problem.
Maybe. I don't know if that's true or not, but like, I never understood the, like applicability. Like it was just like,
well, and then what else ruined it for me was talking to when the closest I got was I called around and I got a hold of a W5 warrant 5 of, I don't remember what the designator number was, some 4-letter something or other, right? Or 4 number. But he was a comms warrant. And so I found the senior guy, because I'm not eligible anymore for the LDO path. I'm only eligible for warrant if I were to put it in. And so I looked into it and I called this guy up and was basically like, hey, run me through your career. He was a surface guy, but same idea, kind of a radio man type deal. And I was like, what do you do? What have you done? What is it like? What happens? Right. Cause I don't even know what I'd be applying for.
Right.
And so he talked to me, super nice guy, super helpful with everything. But he was talking about the ship that he went to. And I was like, oh, were you just like the commo there? And he was like, no. He's like, and I'm like, well, that's literally the point of your job though. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like, yeah, no, as soon as you get to a ship though, you just become another officer in the wardroom. You're just another divo for whoever needs. So he's a comms guy. And he went and he was like, yeah, dude, I was in charge of like, was it CIC, the Combat Information Center? Yeah. So like control is the best that I can think of for us, right? Like in charge of effectively sonar and FTs and
like
that type of thing, right?
Or something.
Yeah. But like, he was like, that had nothing to do with my background. I was just an officer. And so I'm like, all that does is tell me that your job is not needed then, right? Like that's just a JG.
It could just be a misappropriation of him. Like it could be the ship.
Somebody shorthanded or overstaffed somewhere else.
Like the ship deciding that like, I don't need a comms graybeard. I need a divo in this division. So that's where you're going to go. You know what I mean? Like,
but then
I
don't have that.
Right.
Then I would immediately the community should immediately be like, all right, well, you're not needed there. Right. I'll send some other academy grad who can go there and do that job.
Well, that's what I never understood.
I'll send you where you're needed.
Is like, because I applied for LDO like 2 or 3 times when I was a first class. And supply LDOs, like you just go into the pipeline and become a normal supply officer. So I'm like, well, what's the point? Like, why don't I just get a degree and go like OCS or Seaman Admiral or something? Like, I mean, I'd get a degree through Seaman Admiral, but like, why is there an LDO pipeline for supply? And then like food service, I kind of understood because then you do have a role as a divo on a big deck, and then you kind of go into these niche roles, like in the rest of the structure. But it's like, yeah, that could be a supply officer though. So like, or a master chief, which I think would be way better. Like, because I think
that's what killed me is like,
I'm the FSO on a ship. Like I just hand stuff to my supply officer and say, sign here. And they don't argue with me because they don't know what the hell I'm telling them to sign anyway until I train them up.
But it's the same with all of that though. Yeah. Like I don't understand how making you an ensign or a JG or whatever, right, makes you more or differently credible, I guess, when you're basing your credibility off the fact that you used to be a first class or above in that field. You know what I mean? Like if the basis of your authority or the basis of your expertise comes from what you used to do, then why wouldn't you just go ask the guys that are doing that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I always thought
I wouldn't go ask the ensign. I'd go ask the senior chief.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how you would structure this, but like, I always thought it would make more sense for all officers to come from the enlisted ranks. Like you come in, you get a certain amount of experience, and then you have to make a choice. Just like the Marine Corps does with like leadership and technical expertise, right? It's like, I feel like, or even if you came in with like this predestined, I'm going to go be an officer thing, like you have to do 3 years enlisted and then you're going to go officer. And so that you at least understand the plight of the enlisted people whom your decisions affect so deeply. But like, I also feel like you're saying, like why do I need an officer in FSO role when I could just have a chief do it, and it's like, and they'd be way better at it. But then you're like, well, that officer needs to learn how to be a divo. And it's like, or they could just not be a divo. And like, you could structure the ranks differently so that like, if I go technical expertise, that divo is going to just be the food service officer is going to be a food service expert. But then in the other like leadership positions, then like you would transition from chief into like lieutenant or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know how you do it, or if you just like chop it up and like make a whole new rank structure, but I don't know, man.
See, I think that would be the hard part for me is then, because somebody else brought up like, okay, well, I mean,
they can't even do rating mergers without pissing everyone off. So this is probably never like this.
So the thought was like, how do you get to 04 then, right? Like, how does that exist in the LDO community, right? And I get that. My argument, and again, I don't know enough about the officer side of things to fully say. I do say I don't necessarily agree that everybody should be enlisted prior, only because I feel like their job is so different that
it can be in certain like pipelines. I would say like,
I mean, the end goal, right? Like if you're a submarine officer, you're
probably,
if your end goal,
Staff
like your end goal is to go.
It makes more sense.
Okay, yeah.
I think I think my idea applies, like in my brain, it applies more to the staff corps because I was supply. So like that's who I dealt with.
Okay, yeah.
But line officers are doing a totally different thing most of the time. Like they're there to be like, they're being groomed to be commanding officers. Like they're spending, and it's like arguably.
So why waste 3 years of that time?
But also like arguably, why do we even have divos in the role that we do? Like you could have like a chief's doing most of that anyway. And I'm trying to teach the divo management skills and standing in front of a group. So really they're just hanging out with me to learn how to be, they're learning leadership and management skills from me. They're not learning a lot of technical stuff. They are learning submarining things because that's what they need to know to be a good commanding officer. But it's all of it. Like the prime directive is I'm creating commanding officers. Like that's the point here. And then like future flag officers. But like the whole point of what I'm doing with a JO as a division officer is I'm building commanding officers. That's it. So it's like, why don't we unburden all these JOs of all of the division officer responsibilities and let, like you were saying, like some version of the chief or super chief or whatever, just like that's your job now. And then and I'm not trying to like give chiefs more work to do either. I'm just saying it doesn't really, a lot of chiefs I think would agree that it's more stressful to try to teach this divo how to not F all this stuff up than if I just did it myself. But that's not training them. But do they really need to know all these things? Like really what they need is to learn how to be a good commanding officer. And so like I can do that without bogging down my administrative and maintenance schedules and all this crap.
But you could argue that them screwing those things up along the way helps 100%. Them when they are a CO and they can understand what they remember.
You're not
getting
wrong.
Kicked in the teeth and all that.
There's
so
value to that part.
I'm
of it
fine in that aspect.
somewhat.
I think it's specifically the LDO community is what gets me about it. And again, I don't know enough about it because it wasn't a thing that I ever dove into. Yeah. And every time you ask, it's all cagey. Like I got told when I called that guy that I'm not supposed to ask him, what do you do as a as an LDO?
Because they want job security, baby. They don't want them to delete any more designators out of that book. They've already gotten rid of like, I think special warfare and like supply warrants.
Here's my other
now.
favorite one.
With comms designators.
With the submarine comms LDO world specifically, right? 6290.
Yeah.
At 03, they now have to off ramp. You have to have your degree by then. And if you want to make 04, you will go into the like 1120 pipeline, or maybe not 1120. I don't know what the number is, right? But
like
they're no longer, they're no longer LDOs. They just go into the normal Gen Pop officer pool, and that's where you get advanced, right? Yeah. So then my argument is, if you're saying you don't need them, if I don't need you at 04 and above, then why do I need you at 01 through 3?
I think
that's what I have senior chiefs and master chiefs for.
I think the idea was founded in a good place, and likely because I read an article, and it might have been Paul's, but I read an article. I think it was a different one that you sent me where it was an older article where they're talking about utilizing chiefs better. It was the one from the award or whatever that you won.
Yeah. So that was the one from Chief McKenna.
Yeah.
So his one, it's called the post-war Chief Petty Officer Closer Look, right?
Right.
That came out in December of 48, right? So that was before Senior and Master Chief existed.
Right.
But
so
his thing was basically there's too many chiefs. It was the point of his thing, and not enough for them to do.
Right. Well, so what I was getting at with that reference was more like at the time they established LDO CWO, they were probably not using chiefs for what they're using them for now. And so now there's all this convergence that makes a lot of what warrants and LDOs do, like makes a lot of it like irrelevant. Like because there was a big like shift in the wind of like, okay, chiefs are you got to get degrees, and we're going to put you in charge of all the stuff you weren't in charge of before and all this other stuff. There's this big sea change there that wasn't factored into the calculus when building the LDO CWO community, because it's been around for a long time. So it's like, I'm willing to bet that's what's happening. Is it's like, it's starting to wither away slowly, even though I'm sure they're fighting it, because now and I'm not, this isn't an attack on all the warrants. Like I'm waiting for oh God, his name is escaping me. Brian Brown to like come at me sideways, like, cause he's a warrant. But like,
yeah, sure.
I'm just saying, I think they probably didn't figure. I think he'd be fair about that analysis of like, it's
the hard spot though. Like I said, is bringing that up to people, because it's not I don't look at an LDO and say you are useless or you are bad at your job or whatever, right? Like there are plenty of great people that do all those things.
I've met some food service warrants that I want to smother with a door, but it's another story for another time, kids.
But in general, right? Like I just look at what a lot of the early jobs that the early billets and roles that they fulfill. And I just go, why does that have to be an LDO? Why can't that just be a senior chief or master chief? Right. Well, and then to get to the 04 path, right? Let's say you have to make 9 and then you apply. And if you get picked up, you go immediately to 04, right?
Right. That would be a really cool option because like what always pissed me off was like the prospect of me making 9 in rate was infinitesimal. Like I still can't believe I made it. Right. But the reason I probably made it is because for some reason they wrote into the final eval that the board saw that I was like almost qualified cob, which, okay, being almost qualified something means you're not qualified something. So like, I didn't write it in there in my inputs. My CMC added that. And so I'm like, all right, whatever. So I think it like, if they created pathways for me beyond, cause like I had this conversation and didn't get a great answer from the NAV sub CMC at one point. They toured the A school when I was there. And I was like, look, man, I'm going to my second submarine as a senior chief. I'm going to do the same job I did the first time I was there, except, okay, yeah, now I'll be a department chief and I'll finish my cob.
Wasted.
But like, why I'm going back to a submarine to do the same job, a job a first class can do. I'm like, why isn't there a pipeline for me to go to like aircraft carriers or something? It's the same job. And that's not always true. Right. But like for me, it is. But I'm like, why can't you just create a technical expert like pathway for me where not only can I'll do, okay, you want to get a chief's tour out of me on a submarine? I got you. You want to get 2 out of me? Okay, fine. Like you did already. And so I basically told him like, dude, if I decide not to be a cob, I'm never going back to a submarine. And you're going to lose all that time and experience to me retiring, which is exactly what happened, but for different reasons. But if there was a pipeline for me to like continue being a technical expert, like they had me on a flag staff doing inspections on submarines. Okay, now kick me to Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania to go write policy and to be involved in like the planning of the future of our rating, which, you know, now arguably is done by a bunch of civilians that are 20 years removed from being in the Navy and have no idea what they're talking about. And so like, or like send me to be the food service officer at a base galley as a master chief. Like that's a role that I should be filling, not some JG. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's not adding any value to their career progression. They should be at Fisk doing supply officer things, because after the 5 minutes they spend near a galley at the beginning of their career, they go off and do exclusively supply things, but they're constantly chiming in on food service things, which they don't know what they're talking about. And they don't have people like me around to tell them, hey, that's stupid. Here's why. I should be in that role.
If, you know, if like guys like me should be in that role.
Gals like me should be in that role.
If the point is for that JG to take you with them or constantly ask you what should happen because you are the SME, then what is the barrier, the necessity for them other than it's a stepping stone, right? And to your point, there are other stepping stones that could be done.
Yeah. I thought you were making an argument that they should be there and they're the one in the meeting and I just gave them the inputs. And it's like, yeah, but like if I'm in the role, then it's like, it's a different thing when Master Chief's talking than when a O2 is talking. Also, like for me, I had an 04 on that flag staff as my supply officer. They didn't even invite him to the meetings, dude. Like they were planning like underway replenishments for ballistic missile submarines. They wrote an instruction on it. They beta tested it like on a tabletop thing. They did all this stuff. Never once. I didn't hear about it until the instruction was already signed out. And they were telling me that they were going to replenish a submarine with 90 days of food in 4 hours. I'm like, no, you're not. That's impossible. No, you're not. And they're like, yeah, no, they're going to be on a track and they're just going to go back and forth until it's done. I'm like, okay. Like that could work, but you're going to be on the surface going back and forth on that track for 24 hours. Like it's impossible. The hole is only so big.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
you can
get a topside, but submarines don't tend to stay surfaced.
Right. You can't get the food through the hole in less than that. Like it's just, and they'll be like, they did this to me on Carter. They were like, hey, we're going to bump the pier for 4 hours, and you're going to load 45 days of food for the largest submarine crew on the planet. And I said, no, I'm not. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, it's going to take I need 24 hours because my guys have to at least sleep for like 4 hours because then we're presumably going to get back underway and do submarine things. But like, it's going to take, I'm going to be stowing food on the maneuvering watch. Like, I can get it on the submarine in 24 hours and still get a nap for my guys. But like 4 hours is not real. And they're like, no, it'll be fine. This is like my Cobb and my XO. No, it'll be fine. You're going to have the whole crew. Everybody's going to be, I'm like, you don't understand. It doesn't matter how many bodies. Oh God, I keep hitting my desk. It doesn't matter how many bodies you throw at the problem. Like the hole is only this big. Like it doesn't like we'll get all the food on board the submarine safely in 24 hours. My guys will get like a 4-hour nap. We will still be stowing food. Even if like we take all the trash underway that you're not going to want on board Cobb, like even if we just gave up on and said, we're going to store all the cardboard and all, like, even if we do that, I need like basically 24, like just to get it on board. And so then they finally were like, all right, we're going to tie up for, I think I actually ended up getting like 2 or 3 days because they need, some part wasn't going to get there fast enough or whatever. So then like the important things ended up giving me more time, but I'm like, yeah, it's just not real. They don't even talk to you about that stuff. They don't even, they wouldn't have had to put my supply officer to the meeting.
I would say you wouldn't, but if they did, you wouldn't have had to put up such a fight because there would have been some random JG in the wardroom who goes, listen, I'm the food expert and I'm telling you, see, maybe we do need warrants all along, right?
No, I don't agree with that because the difference between me and that 04 is I would choke slam an 1120 in that meeting. And how do you argue with Master Chief about what Master Chief has done for 20 years? Like you don't is the answer to that. There's not an 1120 in that room that would have told me I was wrong about what I've spent like 20 years of my life doing at like on, like, it's just, you can't argue with my level of expertise at this point. But that supply officer, it's like, they're easy to squash because they're part of that hierarchy too. I'm at my terminal pay grade. I don't give a flying fuck how they feel about anything. Like they're going to get it straight and they're going to get pushed around a little bit because I know I'm right. Like this isn't a conversation. This is me downloading information and experience into you. And like, could we have a conversation about other things? Sure. But like, as far as like me telling you, like, there is no way you're getting 90 days of food through a hatch on a submarine in 4 hours. And that's just a fact. Like I've done this too many times. Like I know how long it takes. Like you could be moving at light speed and you're not going to get all that. Yeah. Like get out of here. Like it's not real. And you can't argue with me on that. Like if I'm the one saying it, it's just like, come on. Like, really?
I think it would be interesting too. Like that's a difference in understanding communities, right? Because if you had somebody who's done an unrep on a surface ship, sure, all the things, all the pallets probably fly across in a couple of hours.
Just like yeeting pallets off of a USNS, that's a whole different thing. But like on a submarine, the hole is this big all the time.
Well, not only that, the pallet lands. The pallet lands on your ship. It sits there.
Forklift it into the hangar bay and like.
Right, but then you can detach, right? Break away, and then
they can spend the next day and a half stowing it all, and then helicopter off all the cardboard so the CMC doesn't have a stroke. Like, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing.
No, it's funny. So in the original article and the one from 48, I was laughing because I was reading back through it, right?
That was a great article.
It's some of it's a little odd to read.
I mean, some of it's just dated.
Like I don't know if it's the way that he's wording things because like English has changed and I'm dumb and illiterate. Is probably a good portion of it.
It's probably that. We're probably dumber than like when you read a lot of that stuff from back then, it's like who taught you English? Because you guys sound like a physicist or something. Like they just like the way they articulate themselves.
I mean, to be fair, you did say that people were yeeting pallets, and I don't think that was in the lexicon back in 48.
I am also existing on the internet as like a influence guy or whatever. So it's like I just, I'm trying to keep up with the kids, like with the vernacular.
Well, but so what's funny to me is when I was reading through it, I was skimming through it, and there's a couple of spots in there that I thought were funny because, again, this was written in 48, and how much of it still is super accurate now, right? Or still like good used advice. Like he talks about how like
they're so good. Dude.
He tells people that they right. Like, again, based on the difference in vernacular, I guess, but he talks about how like you shouldn't choose a career in naval service solely based on the remuneration involved. Like, basically don't do it for the money. If you don't want to do this, then
nukes?
It says no reasonable amount of money. No reasonable amount of money could make it worth their while, right? Which is good. Yeah. It's still true. Like, don't do it for the money.
I agree.
Sure, I'm not making boatloads, but I'm doing pretty damn good for an idiot who scraped his way through high school.
Yeah.
But then like he's talking about the idea of, I think it's interesting thinking about somebody who's post-war, like you're a chief in 48, right? Which means you spent serious time through World War II, right? You were there when there was like a ton of shit going on. You were doing like, there was a mission, there was a purpose. You saw it, people died, like crazy stuff, right? And he was talking about how like, if you're not happy with it though, talking about like sourly regarded the 3-year periods still separating him from his retirement date. And that those 3 years shaped up as a sort of endurance contest, right? So like even those dudes were still like,
I want my DD-214 blanket. Like, right
I just got to survive 3 years. I just
got to ride it out. White knuckles.
But then too, like one of the other ones that he said is, he says, we're engaged in operating 4 ships with 3 crews, so to speak, which is funny because the rest of the article is talking about how there's their point was there's too many post-war chiefs. Like there was too many chiefs and they're getting bounced around a bunch because it would be like, hey, we don't need 4 radio chiefs. So like one of you guys has to go. And then because there was no senior chief or master chief, it was a hard spot of like, who is the senior of the 3 chiefs in that division. Right. And then we don't necessarily have that direct, I mean, that conflict or that issue still exists sometimes. Right. Because just showing up, like to your point, showing up and being, you don't get promoted on the spot for taking a billet. So if you go somewhere and you're a radio chief, especially in NavOps now, right? Like on a BN where you've got likely 4+ chiefs in between navigation and, you've got like your ANAV, your nav div chief, your radio guy, your EW guy. And it's like, okay, so who's the NODIA? Who's in charge of that when all 4 of you are the same rank? And that's like, there's just weird drama with that. But he talks about like, there's that issue that comes up. And then, when you bounce people around too much, you don't give them a chance to like basically develop ownership and figure out what's really going on. They're just showing up, trying to complete a job, a task list, right? Which like defeats a lot of your purpose.
Yeah. You mean like divos on a submarine? Like,
well,
you mean like that?
But
they just bounce around and they
in that situation. Yeah. But in that situation too, with chiefs, like it's interesting because we don't have that mechanism for like the advanced to position. We don't have any of that. You make it, it is what it is. But I've always said the same thing. I don't understand people who do like when you have guys that go back and do like you did a senior chief tour doing something that you were also doing as a first and or a chief. So just from a strictly logistical business view, the Navy is very much wasting money on you at that point, right? Like they are overpaying somebody to do a job that could be done by somebody else for less.
Well, what ended up happening in my specific case was they basically made me do the job I was getting paid for. And then my second class was doing a lot of my job, which like he was capable of doing, but I didn't have the manning to not have him do the other things too.
But that's unfair to him.
It was super unfair to him, and arguably unfair to me, because I did want, like, if you're going to put me in this chief role, I want to be a good chief for my guys, right? And I wasn't in a position to do that because they were pulling me away to do the Cobb's job and to do like battle stations drill stuff and assistant ships diving officer stuff, and I was sit and dive 8 hours a day, and like, so I arguably was earned like doing a senior chief job for sure. Like, so that part of it was like, I guess, gotten right in a wrong way, but then then people suffered as a result because there was no structure in place to account for that my doing a senior chief job instead of doing what I was actually billeted there for. So it was like, it like got it right in that regard. And I think that like, I was told by a lot of like people that were kind of mentors to me, that like when they were in their senior chief tour, like, so I'm talking about CSSs at this point, that's what they like, prepare yourself to be like the ACOB. Like, you're not going to be doing your CS job. You're going to be the ACOB, because the math in their head is like, my job almost does itself. Like, like how hard can it be to cook food? I cook food at home for my family all the time. And it's like, that's not what I'm doing, dummy. I'm doing logistics, like, and accounting and endurance for the mission. Like, it's not, I'm not cooking your breakfast. But they can't wrap their feeble little minds around that for some reason. So they're just like, your job's not real. And so then we'll put you on watch 8 hours. You're a 3-section dive forever. You're going to have every collateral duty on the submarine. And then I proved like to be competent and good at things. So then I'm like doing all the admin. I would revise every instruction. Every COB memo was written by me. Everything, man. Like, I mean, the dude probably wouldn't have written any COB memos if I hadn't told him it was a good idea. And then he's like, yeah, okay, go ahead and write it. And then he would just sign it and I'd hang it up. And I mean, I was freaking the COB 80% of the time. So yeah, it was like, I feel like I was doing a senior chief job. It was way different than my first Chiefs tour, but at the same time, I just think my primary duty was being done by a second class largely.
But like, I feel like that's just misuse of resources though, where that kind of goes back to my original point of like, if you did a chief tour and then you come back as a senior chief, they shouldn't just be paying a senior chief to do the same thing that you already did as a chief that's billeted for a chief. But we don't have many. If there's there's what, like, there's how many billets on a submarine are specifically billeted to be senior chief or above? The only thing I think of is 2. Well, I can only think of the EDMC and the COB.
It depends. There's some coded as senior chiefs, and it's probably changed too, but like, and it's special case, like, so that when I was a brand new baby chief on the Jimmy Carter, that was billeted as a senior chief. Like, it was supposed to be a senior chief job, but no one's going to volunteer to go to Jimmy Carter. It's a senior chief.
And that's what I say, is that might be different because of the platform, but like,
it is. But I don't traditionally, I don't know, man. I think,
but how many billets do you think on a submarine that are senior chiefs are just, they're filling a chief billet? They just happen to be senior chief and they haven't moved on, because I think that's the submarine force is so structured with like, you make this rank and you go do this position. Right. And if you don't want to go do that, you don't want to go be a COB, or you don't want to go be an EDMC, then you don't qualify those things. You don't do that, but you have made senior chief because you are good at what you do. Like, now what? So we had the same problem with Alan, right? When he put on Master Chief and they were like, well, you got to go back and be a radio chief. And he was like, no, like, I'm not going to go be a Master Chief filling a radio chief. Like, no, like, A, I've done that. B, that's absurd. It's such a waste. Right. But to my point, that would be the perfect person, all of those senior chiefs or all of those Master Chiefs, to go fill an LDO position, like an 01 through 3 LDO position. They could go do that just fine.
Why do they got to be an LDO? Why not just let a Master Chief do it? Why not just accept?
That's that's what I'm saying.
Technical
just fill all of those billets with 8 and 9s.
I love that, because I would have loved, God, I keep hitting my stupid stand. I'm not usually standing up during podcasts, but I'm doing it because my back hurts. I have like this lower back thing right now. And I keep bringing my hand up to like talk with my hands, and I'm hitting like the keyboard part of my stand-up desk. So I apologize for the shaky video. There's no earthquakes. I always wished that there was a like supply department chief billet on the submarine, so that you could be like a first class. Cause really what they have right now is like a first class usually fills one lead role in supply and then a chief in the other one. But it would have been really nice to have like a senior chief or a master chief to like fall back on leadership wise. And I think it would make a lot of leadership things like easier, more efficient, just better in general, because you have a grown up in the room. Like being a boot chief, I was brand new chief, LS senior chief left. I had a first class lead who needed a lot of development. Great at his job, but like leadership and maturity wise, like needed a lot of work.
Right.
And then I was still a pretty new chief, and now I'm the department chief, and I'm contending with like dudes that have been doing it forever. I had a master chief EDMC that was like god tier. The dude is brilliant. And then Cobb was incredible. And then a lot of senior chiefs on the submarine. So like me advocating for my department as a brand new boot chief, like I did my best, but I got ran over a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I had like a senior chief that wasn't going to take the same crap from those guys, I think it would have been amazing. But then you're in this place where it's like, but not okay. If I have a chief, I'm going to put him at sea on a submarine where I need a chief. So it's like, there's not enough bodies to go around to make that make sense, I guess. But
right.
Like, so I don't know how you would accomplish it, but it'd be amazing. Like if there was stuff like that, not just so like as a master chief, I could go do a sea tour that is like a technical expertise, not being a cob, right? I'm here to run supply. And then I go to shore duty and and eventually you're going to like not be going to sea anymore. Like my senior chief tour would have been like the supply department chief thing. And maybe I make master chief, but then it's like, you eventually get to this point where I'm going to be doing like senior policy things in rate, like running the community.
But based on the rigidity of the BBD enforcement and them saying like 7's going 7 billets, 8's going 8 billets, right? Based on that should be happening anyways, because there is no 8 billet for a cook on a boat. So then you go, well, I've made that. I'm going to go do other things meant for my job.
I don't think submarine. I can tell you for sure that supply doesn't have the inventory to do that. They don't have the inventory with master chiefs, senior chiefs, and chiefs combined that are coming up on a sea tour. Like they did tell me, but it was based on just like PRDs and needing a master chief in that job. They wanted to send me from the flag staff I was at to another flag staff to effectively do the same job at the force level. So they were going to send me back to back shore because I was a master chief. But if that gap wasn't there, they would have told me to go back to a boat, because they need chiefs at sea that bad. And I probably would have gotten nested for it. Like, so it's like, I would have never done it though. And that's why I was just like, if I'm going back, it's as a cob, period.
Right.
But I didn't want to go do that shore duty and then all the other crap that I've talked about at nauseum, like about retiring. But it's just like, for people that are in that similar point in their careers, it's like, it'd be really cool if you could stay in rate, do technical expertise things. But it's like, we don't have the inventory. We just don't. And I don't know how do you fix that? Like my solution is leadership development and education makes people think the organization sucks less, and attrition goes down, retention goes up, recruiting hopefully goes up over time. But I mean,
and then add in like
that's a long process.
You have, I mean, I don't know what the actual numbers are, right? Of people like developing saltwater allergies that magically can't go back to a boat once they make chief. And then, or their second or third or whatever chief tour. And they're just like, I don't know. I just got a case of the itis and talk to doc. And then now magically you don't go. Yeah. Or it's a very small number of people that end up going LDO, like compared to the ratings that exist. Right. So like, I don't think that the 8 people that make LDO this year, or whatever the number is, right? Like that's not going to save the fleet manning, but just over time, all of that stuff does add up. Like all those little bits here and there add up. Like I said, it just killed me because anytime somebody tells me that they're like, man, I just really want to go LDO. And I'm like, why? And it's like, at least
it seems easy on the outside looking in, I'm sure.
There's the 2 reasons that I very much understand. And one of them I agree with, and one of them immediately turns me off to that person is if they say, I just want more money when I retire. Yeah. Like, sure. I get it. I totally get it. Right.
That's the most common reason I hear.
Like, it's honesty, but apparently during your board, you're not supposed to say that you want more money, of course not. Which is stupid because the reason that the dudes are interviewing you is because they wanted more money at some point. Right.
100%.
And then
they almost got me as a warrant when I was a senior chief at the A school. I almost put a package in because I was like, I don't want to be a cook anymore though. Like I don't want guys that are like what I'm doing anymore.
Right. But then there's other guys that were like, oh, I want to, what was the other one that killed me though? The frustrating one was, it's like at least for radiomen, right? If you go 6290, there's like one sea duty billet, maybe. It's like the tenders. If you don't go to one of the tenders in Guam, you're not going to sea basically ever. And that's a super JO tour
big attraction. Yeah.
So unless you go do that immediately, you're probably never going to the tender unless you go as like literally the OIC, right? Or something way high up, the XO or something like that. Right. And at that point you're in there, you're pushing 30 years at least, but it'll be like, oh, cause I don't want to go to sea, cause it's super easy to ride out the rest of the remainder of your career, do 10 years on shore duty and then get out. And it's like, well, I don't want to go to sea. And it's like, then just get out of the Navy.
Yeah, if I had
get out of the way
up as a food service warrant, I would have went to sea one time and then I would have stayed on shore duty until I retired.
And I'm not saying that like I'm not the kind of guy, like I very much appreciate shore duty. The Navy gives it to me for a reason. I'm going to take it. It's great. Yeah. But so I'm not trying to say that like every person that joins the Navy should spend 20 years at sea straight. Like I just, the idea of taking something to avoid something, like taking a job to completely avoid a huge aspect that is in demand, is absolutely crazy to me. Like that one of your reasons for wanting to do something is to skate out of a standard responsibility for your career. Like
I'm not saying
what kills me is that that's somehow a virtue when people say that. I'm not saying that like
I'm like, I understand it.
Yeah.
But like, I don't.
That's what I'm saying is I understand that, but I'm immediately going to judge that person.
But at the same time, I'm not.
I get it.
I understand why people do it. That's for sure.
But it's usually right, like especially in for radiomen, I see it's a lot of guys that are at like 8, 9, 10 years maybe. They made chief pretty quick, and then they're immediately putting on LDO right about the 10-year point, somewhere in that range. And they're like, made it, skated out of that radio chief tour. And it's like, why are you doing the job then?
Right.
Just get out of here. Get out. Go somewhere else. Go get a job in the real. Go work at as a contractor.
Yeah.
And make even more money and never get on. You know what I mean? Like you're just clogging up the works.
I don't get it either. I think a lot of it is like the Andy Dufresne, like it's Shawshank Redemption. Like they don't, like some people really get indoctrinated into this idea that they couldn't make it as a civilian, like that meme that people like some chief that's never been
I'd have punched mine.
Well, no, like a chief that's basically saying you'd never make it in the civilian world, having never made it in the civilian world. Like how would you know? Like, but I think some people get this like comfort level with the devil that they know, and they're just like afraid to transition out after a certain point, because you get like, I can tell you, having retired, there's a shocking amount of things that I've been like surprised by, sort of like, I guess I sort of knew that it was coming, but I discounted it as far as like there's a shocking amount of things that just happen for you in the Navy.
Right.
Like when you're active duty, there's a shocking amount of like, and the health insurance side of it is a huge part of it. And I didn't understand how complicated and just ridiculous it can be until like having been treated for cancer while I was on active duty. I didn't do anything. Like I just showed up and gave them my like benefits number, and that was it. Like I don't pay copays. I don't pay anything. Like they just fixed me and I got all the Gucci treatment. Right. And now it's like a lot different. Like I have to do a lot of things that I don't understand, and I'm learning how to do it and all this other crap. And that's just like one aspect of it. There's all this other stuff that like it. So I think a lot of people just become very comfortable with like the amount of things that the infrastructure that supports military members, like the amount of things that it does for you is shocking. Until then you get out and you're just like, oh God, I have to like be an adult on my own. Like, like what is happening? And so it's like, I think that's a lot of it, is they don't want to give up all the benefits, but they also don't want to do all the hard stuff that sucks. And it's like, I get it. It's awesome being retired. Like, let me tell you, I highly recommend it. But
you put in the time to earn that benefit.
I did.
And I think that's what
I understand. I understand. That's all I'm saying. I don't agree that they should be avoiding the hard things either, but
No, I get it. And like I said, I don't blame them. I get it when they're like, I don't want to go back to a boat. And it's like, yeah, dude, if I could spend the rest of my career on shore duty and make more money, this is a dream job, right? Like that's the dream job.
Yeah. What you're saying though, it's like my buddy Josh, he was my LS chief on my last boat. He made senior chief on that boat and then separated at 14 years. He was like, I cannot go back to another submarine. And the shore duty options they were giving him were places he didn't want to go. Like he didn't want to relocate. And then he was just like, dude, the idea of going back to another submarine and doing this again, because we had, and I've talked about it a ton on the podcast, but like the CO that we had was this bipolar, like, it was brutal.
Was it the guy that I know?
I
think we talked about him.
We can talk. You probably, I think you do.
I think he was my nav.
I think we'll talk about it offline. I don't ever want to like dock somebody in that way, but I mean, you could figure it out if you try. If you knew where I was, you could figure out who it was. I encourage you not to. He was, I think he was a good person. Like generally. I think he didn't do well coping with the stress of being a commanding officer. That's like, he's a human being. I was mad at him for a long time. I've probably said that I hate him on the podcast. And I hate a lot of the shit he did. But I developed an empathy for the just mind-boggling burden. Yeah. The mind-boggling burden you have to be under to get through that. Successfully, and like he was wildly successful on paper, like as a commanding officer. So like he was doing a lot right. He was very good at his job. He's one of the smartest human beings I've ever met in my life.
It's got to be the
brain
same,
is like
dude.
A computer, but like also he did not deal with the stress of the position very well. Like, and I mean, there were moments. I mean, it was like horrific. Like I almost punched him in his face in control one time. Like it was. Like he was, and I'm not the only one either. I mean, our AWEPs almost clocked him. Like there's a bunch of incidents where it was like, you got this close to being on the cover of the Navy Times. But yeah, man, I look back at it now, having had all this time to reflect on it and like analyze it. And then having studied a little psychology and leadership more and whatever, it's like, I think I spent a bunch of time talking to that dude, especially when we were in off crew. Like I'd be in his office. We'd have really great conversations. Like he's a super smart dude. Really like the way he would analyze things and explain things. Like he was great. He was amazing. And he was a really great dude to be around when we were in the OCAB. But when he had the submarine, it was a whole different human being, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
He was a great dude. And I think he's probably a really good person. Like I'm not personally friends with the guy. So like, I don't know.
Right.
But he was cool to me. I saw him a bunch after that when I was doing inspections on boats. I would run into him because of the next job. He was coming out on boats too. And he was always like super happy to see me and we'd chop it up. And so I think he's a good guy that just did a really bad job of handling the stress, which I don't even know how you would. Like, I imagine being a cob is like my version of it. And I would think about that a lot because of how stressed out I was sit and dive. It's like when I'm the cob, like, holy Jesus, like the amount of stress that would have been on me, like because of the way that I would have entered the role, I feel like there could have been some issues, you know what I mean? Like, and especially if I had done it after my last job and like I had not retired, I don't think I would have made it 6 months before I would have just been a mental health dumpster fire. So I'm really glad I never did it because it's a job I think is too important to screw up, but like it gives you just like this tiny little peek behind the curtain of the burden of being a commanding officer. Like I can't even process like the amount of stress those people are under. So it's like, I'm a lot more forgiving of the experience, even though, at the time I wanted to punch him in his face. So there you go. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think he's a horrible human being by any stretch. I did at the time. I was pissed the entire time. It took me a long time to get past that, like where like even when I was seeing him after the fact, like on those inspections, I would tell my counterpart, the LS Master Chief, how he was a piece of crap and all the horrible things he did. But then like the more I thought, and I think talking to names are always my kryptonite. The dude I did the CO suggestion box episodes with, it'll come to me, but talking to him about his role as a CO and like the way he interacted with his people and the reasons why he was the way he was. Cause like his people, like Ellison, doing the test up stuff, like that was his CO. And those dudes, having been second classes that just separated, they talked about that dude like he walked on water. I'm like, people don't normally talk about their CO that way. And so I'm like, this is interesting. I'm like, who is this dude? Why is he different? And he was an 1120, but he had a degree in music. And I'm like, that's interesting. Like, because most of them are engineers or something adjacent, right?
Some STEM category,
some STEM thing, topic. Or like, and a lot of them were like enges and just those dudes that lean really hard that direction towards like the nuclear engineering side of things. And I think talking to him, it gave me some more perspective on like what a CO is and what kind of like unbearable pressure they're under. And it's just like, okay, I guess I shouldn't be as mad as I am. Like,
so if it's the same,
I got
if it's the same guy,
of him being a good person. So I'm like, okay, like I need to be, you know.
So I always said that he was like the smartest dude I ever met. Assuming it's the same guy, because I'm pretty sure it is. Probably. He was like a physics major. And I feel like at some point he had like a physics degree, and I feel like at some point he put in an application to go be an astronaut. Like he applied through NASA to go be an astronaut at some point. Obviously didn't get picked up, but just an insanely smart guy who would remember every detail that you told him.
Yes.
And then
he remembered everything, dude. He would talk to you about technical specs from like three boats ago.
Exactly.
He hadn't been on an 88 or whatever boat in 15 years, and he could still tell you like technical details of how it worked and stuff. It was
when I was qualifying, right? He was the officer of the deck when I was trying to get my fish, and I went out to go do my ESM quals. And so I went out there and I was like, what does this guy like to ask? Right? Like, what does he do? And he was the officer of the deck. And I was, like, what's his standard questions type deal? And so somebody's like,
crazy obscure.
Well, they were like, he's going to ask you about something. I don't even remember what, but he's going to ask you about this. And he was like, and it's some topic that's like not very easy to explain.
Yeah.
And he was like, and my CDAD was like, just tell him that it's like the chaos theory and kind of explain it that way. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And I'm like, I have no idea what the chaos theory, like I know the term, right? But I don't know enough about it. I don't
understand what it means. Yeah, I don't.
Right. And so I was like,
get him talking about physics so that he's not asking you questions.
No. So I walk out there and it was a total setup. So I go out there and of course he asked me about it. He ran me through a bunch of questions. He was cool with it. Super dry, sarcastic, kind of like poking fun at people type thing. Yep. But like in a not in like a mean way. I don't know how to describe it, but
he was hilarious.
So he's giving me a hard time about something. Mood, dude. Yeah. And so he was like, he goes, all right. He's like, Kazoo, tell me about whatever kind of radar. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, and we're standing like I'm on the edge of the con, right? So we're under the open mic. They're all in radio listening, and I was like, oh, it's kind of like the chaos theory. And he just freezes and stares at me, and then just dropped my qual card down the scope well.
Oh,
and I'm just looking at him like, what? And I'm just like wide-eyed, like,
that's cold-blooded.
What do it? And he was, and he's like, go get your CDAD type deal. And then I could hear like you could hear them laughing through the curtain and radio, and you immediately get the like radio to the con.
Yeah.
And so like he walks out with a big old smirk on his face, and he was like, all right, two things. And he looks at me and he's like, you need to find the real answer. And then now you also have to go tell me what the chaos theory is and why you were way wrong with that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and then two, and he looks at my CDAD, he's like, you have to help him tag out the scope and get his qual card back out of there.
Yeah, that's a very
I was looking at him like, man, why did you send me? Like, now we got to go hang
on the nose
tags.
story
Like,
for him. Yeah, that's hilarious.
And it was funny, but like, and I mean, I learned some stuff from him, but like definitely by that. But just the way he
so savage.
And they were like, oh yeah. Because I remember asking him, like, dude, did you know he was? And they were like, the last time we told him something about that, we said it was because of the chaos theory. And he freaked out and he was like, I'm a physics major. Do you even know about that? And he started going into the details about why they were wrong on like some sarcastic thing. And he was in a bad mood.
Now, if I ever see him again, I'm going to find a way to slip in the chaos theory and work on it. That's kind of like the chaos theory. Just
he was basically like, if you ever talk to me, he was basically like, don't ever talk to me about the chaos theory again. Like that's something hilarious. About, whatever, just mad about it. So they found a chance to set me up. And like, it's funny. Yeah. Like, I get it. Even in the moment, I was just kind of like,
savage that he actually dropped it down the scope. That's so fucked up, dude. Like, but it's like, it's also hilarious. Like, if I'm your CDAD in radio, I'm pissing myself after I find out he actually put your. I'd be like, oh, I gotta write a tag for this. Worth it. Like, worth it. Like, I'm totally doing it, and then I'm gonna laugh at you the whole time you're getting your card out.
100%. Yeah. Oh my God. It was brutal. It was a miserable end to that. He's the one that came in when I went to go do my fish board. I had the senior chief sonar tech was the forward or / chief that was sitting my board.
Yeah.
And he crazy smart dude and had been in forever, right? And he right before I walked in there, the nav was like, hey, I've never bottom lined somebody's qual card as a department head and had them fail. And you're the last dude that I'm going to sign before he transferred. So he's like, you're the last person. Keep the streak alive. Don't disappoint me. And I was like, cool. No pressure. Not like, hey man, good luck. You got this. It was just very much do not disappoint me.
Oh yeah.
And
you're like, so well, like, are you going to like kill me if I die?
Right. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Like, good talk. I'm super jazzed about this board now.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm sitting in the, what was it called? Like the officer lounge. I forget what the name is.
Officer study. Yeah.
There you go. I was up there, right? Waiting for the board to start. We were waiting on the nuke to show up. And so I'm just sitting there and then he opens up the door and he looks over at me. And I still call him Nav when I talk to him because that's just who he was to me forever, even though he's way higher than that now. But he opens up the door and he looks in and he's like, hey, Grilly, to the senior chief that was sitting there. And he's like, this guy here says that there's not a single thing that you can't ask him about sonar that he doesn't know. He's like, he's told me earlier that you better be bringing a notepad. He's like, he told me earlier that you better bring a notepad to take notes, right? And I was just
learn some
there.
Stuff today about sonar,
And then he looks over at me and he goes, "Don't screw this up," and then closes the door.
I never said that.
And I'm like pale, right? I had to have gone white as a ghost.
I would have immediately been like, "I never said that."
I think I was just like in shock, and I was just like frozen. All color left my face, right? Because you're already nervous because it's your fish board.
Yeah.
And this dude looks over and he looks at me. He's like, "Hey, man," he goes, "I am not going to ask you a single thing about sonar." And I was just like, oh, thank God. And he kind of laughed when I said that. And he's like, I know everything there is to know about sonar. That's why I'm here. You know about radio. That's why you're here. Because I don't care about any of that because this isn't a sonar board or a radio board. And I was like, okay.
I know lots of other things.
Super stoked because I still don't know almost anything about sonar. So if you would have asked me, I would have been immediately hosed.
Yeah, that was one of the ones. I feel like no one knows anything about the nuclear plant except for how to draw the hot rock make steam go around you. Yeah, like the thing Trick has on like a sticker now. I know how to do that. And then, I don't feel like I knew anything about sonar. Like I might have, but God, it's one of those ones where I feel like it just got blazed off and no one ever asked sonar questions on a board.
No,
at least not like any ones I've ever sat.
No, but of course, like he walks in and sets me up with that kind of lead in to the sonar senior chief. And I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm going to disappoint him. I'm going to I'm just going to leave now. Like, is it possible to go UA underway, underwater?
It is. Some kid proved it on a surface ship. Not too
no, underwater. Like, I want to know
if you could do it underwater.
If you really tried.
Spots in the engine room, you could probably disappear.
It was just the whole idea of like, oh my God, this is this guy's pep talk, right? And then of course, like when I passed it up, then I was like, I saw him and I was like, I passed Nav, and he was like, of course you did. And then that was it. And it wasn't like
card. Yeah.
It wasn't like congrats. It wasn't.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, it never had. He like I got an above standards on my SMI after having been on board for 4 months, and he shook my hand and coined me. And the only thing he said was, "Congratulations, you're dink, chief or senior." Because I hadn't requalified anything since checking in. So he's like, "Congratulations, you're dink," and like coined me at the same time. Like that. Thanks, sir. I know. Like, I know I need to requalify chief watch and duty chief and then qualify dive. I'm aware. But yeah, it was love it. It's just, that's what the nicest thing he ever said to me was I was sitting dive one day and he walks into control, and like I was perpetually like worried as dive, and he walks in and we had just done. He would come into control and randomly make the dive go to 1SQ because the battle station, he didn't want the battle station's dive to be the only one that knew how to do it. And he wanted us halfway there by the time I got relieved by the BSM team.
Right.
So he would just walk into, and I remember the first time he did it, I'd only been sitting in the chair for like a couple of weeks. And I'm like, I don't know how to go to dive 1SQ. Like, I have no fucking clue. Like, and it was just a dumpster fire. And then he called it off. And then he's like, you need to go work with the BSM dive and figure this out and blah, blah, blah. And so after like 3 or 4 times doing it, I figured it out. Right.
Yeah.
But he would randomly come into control and just say, you know, off the deck, go to dive 1SQ. And he'd be like, fuck it. Cause he'd do it. He'd wait till we're pumping sands and like your trim's all fucked up and you got to like go figure it out. And so like, I as a way to combat that, I made like a little tack aid that was laminated that had like load supportability tables and here's where I put my water and stuff. And I would track everything. Right. So when he did it, I would basically know how to get back to a 0 trim at the place we were at. So he would come in and do that. And one day he came in, did it. I'm stressing out. I got to dive 1SQ, but it wasn't the prettiest thing in the world. And when I got done, I just had this, you know, my life look on my face. And he just goes, you know, senior, you're not as bad at this as you think you are. And then just walked away. And that was like the greatest compliment I ever got from that dude. It was just like, thanks, sir, I think. Like
everybody used to talk about, my favorite part though is I don't know because I'm not a nuke, but everybody used to always talk about how he was like just a terrible nuke.
I don't.
Which is funny because I don't imagine that because he's so smart, right?
Yeah.
So in my head, like he just knows all of it.
And he was an eng. But so like, or wasn't? No, he wasn't.
No, he was a nav.
He was a nav. Yeah.
So, but while he was the nav, right? He was like the senior dude at the time who was doing all that stuff. And so he would write the watch bills for them, and he would write himself to have like his like minimum proficiency in the box.
Yeah.
But he would do it like, he would intentionally, because he writes the night orders and all that other stuff.
Like stupid times when nothing's happening.
It would be, yes, a mid-watch when you're doing absolutely nothing, not a single bell change, nothing. He's just sitting there for 6 hours hanging out. And then he'd come off and he'd be like, well, got my proficiency.
Yep.
And then he would crush it on the con and he'd do all this other stuff. But we were always laughing like, come on, man, you can't bust my chops that bad when like, and so one of the times I gave him a hard time about it and I was like, if you're so great, then why don't, you know, I was like, why don't you go back there and stay? And he's like, because I don't want to. And I was like, I have to. And he was like, well, then go become a navigator and write your own watch bill. And then you don't have to either.
Yeah. Get promoted, nerd.
Like, got me.
Yeah. Dude, that was the one concept I like never embraced as I got promoted was that like there are privileges and like it was like, I probably should have a little bit, but it was like, I looked at it like Star Wars, like if it's the gateway to the dark side kind of thing. Like I felt like I had to like maintain my virtue or something. Cause it was like, I was the watch bill coordinator but I also was like every other collateral duty. And then my buddy showed up and he wanted to be the watch bill coordinator, didn't even register that he wanted to be the watch bill coordinator so that he could write himself into the best possible place on the watch bill. Didn't occur to me either, like an idiot when I was the watch bill coordinator. Like I was still in section. So I was just like, it didn't make any sense to me. And I never wanted to be perceived as the guy that was like taking advantage of that position. But like, as soon as I gave it up, everybody that had it after me abused the privilege of being the watch. And I'm like, should I have just done that? Cause this sucks. Like, and cause I could never get off the watch bill after that. And I was just like, bro, like what is happening? Cause like the guy that took it from me, well, yeah, it was the guy that took it directly from me. Like he wrote himself off the watch bill constantly. But he did it in a very crafty way. He was the Sonar Soup kick, but he never kicked, like almost ever. Like he would just be on, but he was on the watch bill as a kick, but it was just like he would just barely ever kick. Like, or if something like we needed somebody to do something else, he would go relieve Sonar Soup, but like he would just never kick. And so it was just like, oh, I see what you did there. You're not off the watch bill, but you're off the watch bill. And I was like, I clearly have some things to learn, but at the same time, like I just didn't feel right doing that. Yeah. Like I would have felt gross about it. So, and I didn't really have, like, I couldn't make myself the Sonar Soup kick because there is no, like, you can't be the galley soup kick. Like there's no such thing. So yeah, I don't know. It was stupid. All right, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I mean, y'all already know Chief Bob is the ride or die, so it's always fun talking to him. You'll see him a lot of times in the live streams too, which I'm pretty sure we're doing one Thursday. I'll announce it on social media. I got to make sure. I've been behind on a few things because I had a back issue, or like it's still kind of there, but just old. Not stretching enough, who knows, jiu-jitsu. But yeah, my back, I was like having a hard time standing up and sitting down and stuff. So that was another reason why I didn't have an episode last week until that stuff happened and I came in and started screaming. So yeah, it's like I couldn't barely like do simple tasks that a person has to do every day. So there's that. As always, if you need anything from us, hit us up. Don't Give Up Shit Podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up Shit Podcast, or you can DM us on Instagram, Reddit, or Discord at DGUTS Podcast. If you want to support us, dgutspodcast.com. There's a donate button on the website, or go to Don't Give Up the Ship Apparel. It's dgutsapparel.com. You can get yourself some sweet stuff like this Doc shirt we got kicking. It says, well, there we go. Get it on the camera. It says change your socks in Latin, and then he's holding socks, and it's a little pill guy, and it says established 1898 for the docks. So that's the dock design that I got. It's not on the website yet, but it's going to be very soon. I got a couple more things to tweak is to make sure that it prints correctly on different colored shirts and stuff. But got that one coming. Got the Skiff Mates and the Super Secret Squirrel, and then I got an aviation one too that all the Discord homies know what I'm talking about. It's like based on Skittles because like the flight deck folks, they call, at least to my knowledge, they call them Skittles, but a lot of the aviation people that I know in Discord co-signed and said it was amazing. And so I'm excited to release all that. We got 4 new designs dropping very soon. So stay tuned for that, dgutsapparel.com. And then the best way to support us, patreon.com/dgutspodcast. Pick one of 5 tiers, whatever you can swing. Lots of cool benefits there, and it really, really helps us pay all the bills and expand the platform. So we really appreciate it if you can do that. And if you can't spare the coin, it is what it is. I understand times are tough. You can support us just by subscribing to the YouTube channel, following the podcast, sharing stuff, tagging stuff, sharing like the reels and stuff, which a lot of people have been doing with that episode I just did. So I really thank you, and I appreciate that. But yeah, just share the content, like the content, review the content on all the platforms for all the things. And that helps a ton with all the algorithmic stuff and getting the word out to the people that need it, that I'm trying to get it to. So we appreciate everything. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship. Hey, big shout out to our level 5 patrons, William McIver and Victoria Livingood, to all the other patrons and everyone that supports us. We couldn't do it without you. You're allowing us to expand the platform, pay all these bills, and continue to push out just awesome content for you as much as is humanly possible. And we really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button, drop a comment down below on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel.